It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 209. We are talking about touch and the senses, we're talking about joy in the senses, and today we're talking about the sense of touch. All right, so this is our last sense in the series, and let's start with our basics, and then we'll jump into how touch can be something that can give you good energy in at all times throughout the day. All right, let's start with the basics. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in, go ahead and expand through the belly, expand through the chest, expand through the top of the head and tuck your tail. And release. And because this is about joy, let's breathe into whatever joy you had today. Today I'm making puff pastry and it's really looking awesome. So I am going to breathe into that memory. And release. All right, so this is the last day about joy. There could be so many more joyful things, but we're going to talk about just this last day, and we're going to talk about the sense of touch. So remember that we're always working from the healing equation. Energy to heal equals good energy in minus stressors. And we've talked about all the other senses and how they can bring joy, but a lot of times joy is interpreted from top down, from your brain based on your memory. Particularly yesterday we talked about people who like to ride fair rides and roller coasters and how that would bring them joy versus people who don't. And we've talked about the sense of smell, that it's very cultural based. Certain cultures will put things as terrible smelling. Others just put them as, clinical or floral, and they leave them at that. We talked about kinesthetic, so good stretches and good movements. We've talked about hearing. Obviously, particular pieces and particular tones are individual. And of course, taste and sight. Today we're going to talk about the sense of touch. And while we've talked about the sense of touch before, we've always talked about the fact that the sense of touch is one of those that is the one sense that has a bottom-up component that immediately responds in terms of pain. So it will immediately tell you when something is not good energy in. You can step on a Lego. That is not good energy in. And your pain receptors are going to tell you that. They are going to give you that information. So touch is a little bit more clear-cut, even though there are some specific touches that are definitely top-down driven. So, for example, I just cut my husband's hair the other day, and we cut it really short. So it was about a quarter of an inch long. And let me tell you, I find it very wonderful to just run my hands over the top of any head that has had their hair cut that short. I would ask, when I was teaching in college, at the college level, I would ask students if I could touch their head. It's just a sensation that I really like. It's always usually soft. It's all the same length. It all goes in relatively the same direction. It feels pleasurable and joyful to me. And so, needless to say, I spent a lot of time coming up and rubbing my husband's head throughout the day because it was a good sensation. Now, we can also talk about things like worry stones. So you can get special stones that do this, but a lot of people will carry worry stones that have little grooves that are worn in them, places for you to actually rub your thumb back and forth on it. And you can do that with prefabbed, pre-created ones, or you can just find a stone that feels particularly nice for you and just rub your thumb across it. Worry stones, again, you're feeling for texture, you're feeling for smoothness, and even though they're tied with the name worry, what they really are is a touch-based, calming, joyful experience. They're designed to bring you back into your body. You're feeling that sense of touch. You're back to What is it that I'm experiencing? How does that feel? How does that make me feel good? And so worry stones, despite their name, are actually very good touch-based centers of joy, especially if they feel good underneath your fingers. And we've already talked about clothes in the senses last week, or a couple weeks ago. And so clothes have, again, their own joyful component because they feel good. You can pick clothes that feel better than others. Overly starched shirts, if they feel good to you, you can add them. If you don't like overly starched shirts and are more prone towards merino wool or cashmere, you can wear that too. That, again, is a top-down thing. But it's top-down in the sense that it's linked to that bottom-up sense of, it's not activating the pain receptors. So, why is touch one of those senses that you can basically carry with you everywhere? You can pack your day full of joy from a touch sense, as long as you line it up right. You could put worry stones or smooth stones at your desk so that when you sit down and you feel like, my mood is dropping a little bit, I'm just going to rub these stones. And they are going to feel good. They're going to bring you joy. Touch, again, we could talk about clothes. You can wear things. One that comes up is rabbit foot. A rabbit's foot, while for good luck, feels really nice to touch. And it's just something that you can rub, and the sensation of it is soft and comforting. And you're like, yeah, I feel pretty good doing that. So you could carry a rabbit's foot around with you. You could carry puffballs around you. We've talked about couches and other types of sensory things. And these are all tactile things that, as long as they're not activating the pain receptors, which, would be Legos and, cactus, they are going to not activate the pain receptors. And if you have previous experience that links them to joy, like when my husband cuts his hair, then that's that additional top-down component. Joy is typically, when we're looking at all the other senses, top-down driven, but it can be driven from bottom up. It is the first sensation that you experience. You work on touch. So putting joy into your life around touch is almost primary. It's almost that primary sensory thing that we should do. We should look for places where we can bring touch, joyful touch sensations into our experience, because they're the first system that was activated when we were born. There's a reason why, we bounce, that's kinesthetic, but we also rub the backs of babies, and we rub their heads, and we play with their fingers, and they try to put everything in their mouth because they're working on the sense of touch. Taste as well, but a lot of it is touch. What does this feel like? And so sensation of touch should be really joyful, as long as you pick the things that are most joyful to you. So I'm going to challenge